Miss Georgia Fakarou from the Hellenic Ministry of Culture and Sports. She will talk about the natural landscape and shape of human body, a new approach of the deity with upraised arms as an embodiment of Minoan peak sanctuary surroundings.
Good morning. Many thanks to all of you. You gave me the opportunity to participate. I drew inspiration for the present paper from my postgraduate studies at the University of Crete on the relationship between humans and natural landscapes in prehistoric Aegean. Especially through Katerina Kopaka's sensitive, fresh response to my thoughts, the problematics of this topic took their final form. Natural landscape and human body in the mindscape of mankind have always been interconnected, sometimes in a mind-boggling manner. In the sphere of myth, Egyptian goddess Nut gave birth to the sun via her female body. In Hesiod's theogony, natural elements such as rivers are born by divinities with human bodies and properties. In Greek mythology, rivers are men who set free their life-giving power. Trees are transformations of young boys or girls under specific circumstances, as in the case of Daphne and Kyparissos. Even today, mountains have heads, feet, back, nose, etc., either in an abstract manner in juxtaposition to their paper or lower part, to a special feature of their form, for example, a pointed end, or in a more realistic equivalence. Euctas, to turn our attention to Crete, exemplifies a huge conspicuous figure above Knossos, embedded in a storytelling about the place where Zeus was like after his death. An anthropomorphic aspect of landscape becomes a member of human community to some extent thanks to the absence of built environment. In which case, landscape elements keep their prominence, at least in terms of visibility. No one doubted the central role of natural world in the reality and spirit of Minoans. In the field of Minoan religion, natural connotations conveyed through human qualities are never lacking, whether it is for the Great Mother attended by a dying and rising god who symbolized agricultural cycles, as invented by Fraser and Evans, or Nilson's polytheism full of divinities linked to nature, or just an expression of general beliefs away from impersonal, not visualized religious images. Minoan's sophisticated understanding of natural world is reflected in the mimicry of the complexity of natural world against bilateral symmetry, according to Hitchcock. Natural space embodiment, not only in the Minoan built environment, but in any kind of art, never stopped to exist in various forms during pre-palatial and post-palatial times. The tubes of Messara are aligned with the rising sun. The entire physical space seems to have been squeezed in architectural structures. Minoan palace complex might be understood as a representation of a valley surrounded by mountains. Lustre basins, pillar crypts resemble caves or water springs. Landscape scenes decorate the walls of palaces or other buildings of special importance, such as villas. Ritual activities focusing on natural world are depicted on seal stones and clay seal impressions. Thanks to the development of a deep, experienced relationship that overcomes the simple interaction between men and landscapes, it becomes possible to make sacred elements out of the natural world or treat nature for ideological ends. The idea of artificially produced natural places has been put forward by many researchers. Minoan elite class created representations of landscapes in private rooms of restricted and controlled access. Besides the psychological impact on ordinary people who had not the opportunity to experience so tight natural cycles, rulers claimed the divine approval of their power via this kind of exclusive art. Nevertheless, nature itself cannot be invented or treated in favor of part of the society without resistance by the majority of people. Natural landscapes, being always there, are viewed, touched, even nowadays, in a way similar to that distant era, just because all this happens with the same tools, namely our bodies. The strong nature-humans relationship is responsible for the indivisible character of natural cultural element, more than evident in the peak sanctuary phenomenon. The peak sanctuary phenomenon as a sacred topography is a society's construct, a spiritual response to living within a particular landscape, as Pitfield put it. What is this physical surrounding that has the potential to generate rituals, even cult activities, and why the generated experience is so important to be recalled at later times, as we are going to see further below? Zones with evergreen vegetation are home to most of the peak sanctuaries. These sites appear on or close to a mountain peak, having at least one gentle slope extending down an area of human exploitation, either cultivated land or pasture. Peculiar geographical features on Yuctas and Kofinas, such as deep chasms and stiff cliffs, enabled these sites to stand as templates for other sites and gain a more eminent position. The phenomenon of peak sanctuaries is defined basically by two elements: natural topography and bodies, real bodies and small anthropomorphic figurines. Landscape and bodies, in an abstract way, are at one. A strong sensory stratigraphy, in Hamilaki's words, is formed and reformed any time people walk in an ascentic movement towards the top of the hill. The basic instincts of human nature seem to be stimulated by the unspoiled natural environment. They touch stones and bushes, they smell, taste, hear, see any element a Cretan mountain can provide. They also eat, drink, inhale, even have sex, activating their consuming bodies. This particular bodily experience is strongly connected with the surroundings too, as it is set in motion at the sight of the horizon. The whole experience reinforces man-nature bond and helps people consider space and time in a deeper way. We cannot avoid facing space and time in connection to each other, as they constitute the basic dimensions of the physical world and of human experience as well. Their manipulation is evidenced, for instance, in Vrisinas, considering the plethoric three-dimensional depiction of natural elements in pottery. Physical movement, in a way, is enrolled in mobile objects. Furthermore, Minoans, by embodying themselves in the landscape through rituals on peak sanctuaries, project their body to manipulate aspects of space and time. In Herrickson and Bloomberry's view, peak sanctuaries such as Petchofas functioned as places for astronomical observations, since in certain years the new crescent moon and the full moon are set at the equinoxes directly behind Mount Modi, the only prominent landmark to the west. According to their interpretation, the most frequently occurring type of female figurine on Petchofas represents a moon goddess who was associated with Mountain Modi. The unusual shape of the heads of these figurines suggests the phases of the moon, while the conical skirt alludes to Mountain Modi. The peculiar headgear with no demarcation between head and head served the very special purpose of depicting the moon standing in contact with the mountain. Commenting on this excellent observation of the above-mentioned researchers, two procedures are discerned. First, people under special conditions project themselves onto the landscape by ascribing to the horizon a human physiognomy, and second, they replace this anthropomorphic landscape by a small artifact. The question is, what led them to this very transformation? They may have attributed magical properties to the object, meaning control to spatial and temporal aspects of nature through a lunisolar calendar. They may have sought to confront a negative emotion such as fear for a drying season, asking for rain, as it must have been the case because of the climatic change in the increase of summer evaporation it had caused. Bodily movements of being in and engaged with the physical and sensory environment activate memories produced by embodied actions and exchanges of feelings. Those memories are there to be recalled at a later occasion. The quality and dynamics of memory depend on the sensory experience, on the depth of it. During the era that peak sanctuaries functioned, an experience was created, specks of which may have survived in collective unconscious as it was formed at a collective level. It has been supported by Briot that raised causeways along the west coast at Festos might have acted as processional routes, reproducing at least in part the physical experience of peak sanctuary rituals. Similarly, an experience perhaps was evoked in the urban shrine at Festos through the deposition of ritual objects in an open-air pit. In addition, Blackolmer suggested that mural paintings operated as a reminiscent of the natural settings of outdoor rituals, especially of the peak sanctuaries, as an outcome of a deliberate religious political strategy. If need be, during the redefinition of Minoan religion after the disappearance of the palatial system, this experience would play an important role. When necessary, memories are recalled to contribute to emotional expression and peace of mind. Adaptive qualities of memories have contributed to the survival of humans throughout time. In the eventful, turbulent post-palatial times, Minoans seem to transfer aspects of ritual activity on peak sanctuaries to closed sanctuaries in public freestanding buildings. Taking for granted that memory has a substantial time depth, it is advisable to revise post-palatial bench sanctuaries dated to late Minoan 3 BC, where large terracotta figures with rounded, wheel-driven lower part and schematized torso have been found, together with typical cultic equipment. Not only this experience may be transmitted through mobile objects, but it is going to be transformed into an object. Which artifact had the properties to serve this purpose? They had to choose something affordable to all people, made of simple, not precious materials, such as clay in ceramic workshops. Furthermore, they had to invent an artifact that would depict the identification of man with landscape, enact the interactive reading, humans projected onto natural landscape and vice versa, landscape onto humans. This artifact, in addition, would have to bear out a sense of theme unification necessary for the depiction of landscape. What else could represent an indivisible wall, a compact system of elements other than the human body, as it is familiar and tangible to all people? Despite the striking changes in religious expression that had been observed in relation to post-palatial era, there is a continued importance of aspects of the natural world. Considering the deep man-natural landscape bonding, a mind mixing of mountains and horizons with human forms is feasible. The idea of merging entities is not unknown to Minoans, seen in conjunction with animal-human hybrids, which appear full-bodied and indicative of the fluid limits of the Minoan religious body, as this has been defined by Simantiraki. Moreover, we have already discussed how mountain modi and Petsofast figurines evidence the entangled conception of a natural element and a human body at one. To Herba's mind, a social identity is assigned to specific landscape elements through interaction with humans. In the same context, we can see the mountain, which bears a peak sanctuary, to exist as an experienced landscape affecting Minoans with its presence, with its altitude, with all the images and past remembrances it can activate. Thus, by viewing the idol with upraised arms as natural landscape, and especially as that of the peak sanctuaries, the following description is formulated. The head could be perceived as a mountain peak framed by twin peaks or other ones with no symmetry reflected in the arrangement of the upraised arms. A female body represents a hillside, wooded or suitable for cultivation. On top of the head, spatial and temporal aspects of landscape appear in the shape of insignia of Minoan religion. Let's analyze the basic characteristics of the idol under the approach in discussion: position and size. The idol defines a perpendicular axis up-down since it was found in upright position, reminiscent of the axis mundi a mountainous bulk can establish. Regarding the natural landscape along with the arrangement of its elements as mirroring the religious body in Simantiraki's sense, properties like focal position, big size, more prominence among other features meaning trees, rivers, valleys, rocky points, presentation of a wall and not a part of it can easily be applied to a mountain. A sense of stability and integration is released in the air. Irrespective of a divine or any other quality of the object, we could argue that an object, a thing, in the context of the conference, which is called to replace a sacred mountain, must have a considerable size. It has to be big, reminiscent of the real dimensions of a mountain in a mental scale. The idea of micrography and mental diminution is familiar to Minoans, considering that an enclosed valley, a natural megaron in Scully's words, is encased into a Minoan palace complex. Artistic representations of trees, soil, rocks operate as symbols or references to outside space. Rock work and terrain motifs are regarded as abstract indications of natural ground. Gesture. Raised hands had already been seen by Scully as the surroundings of Knossos Palace as a version of them besides horns or wings. Alexiou rightly observed that the figures hold up empty hands without showing up something. According to Rithemiotakis, an angular shape, along with a geometrical appearance, ascribes a sense of stiffness to the gesture due to the tendency of the post-palatal era for geometrical patterns. However, perceiving the open hands as upright natural features, earthy structures are implied full of confidence and courage in martial arts phenomenology. Sex, head, face. The face appears man-like. A neutral asexual aspect is here detected. Actually, if the aim was to depict a mountain through anthropomorphism, there was no special need for that to be female. They might have been content with a form similar to humans in general terms. Sex body. Nevertheless, a female idea could not be overlooked as it is associated with fertility. The concept that the female figure transcends the confined boundaries of gender may originate in Neolithic times. As Hormuziadis pointed out, people used female figurines to communicate with one another in the sense that these statuettes could have implied everything: love, continuity of life, productivity. The environment of peak sanctuary surroundings is thus further recalled. Lower than the top, there are regions available for cultivation of cereals, legumes, vines, olives, fig trees. This blurred imaginary depiction of both sexes is linked to engendered aspects of landscape by taking into account male and female mountainous escalations as those recognized by Lukács in relation to Mount Ida. Symbols top of the head. As opposed to their approach as indicative of the plurality of separate deities, symbols on the head might be read as spatial and temporal aspects of natural landscape in concise forms. More precisely, they might be seen as natural forms that somebody can encounter being on the top of a mountain, that is, denoting a space with dispersed or not at all vegetation, with a horizon imposing over it. Horns of consecration resemble the Mesopotamian motif in which a solar god appears between two peaks on the horizon. A wish for successful manipulation of sun could be ascribed to the use of the forenamed symbol or to the sun disk as well. Plants, snakes, and birds could also be associated with elements of space such as soil, subsoil, or sky, or even with time, for example, the season of spring. Conclusions. Peak sanctuary landscapes have a prolonged involvement in the Minoan social world. Having never stopped to exist till at least the end of the Bronze Age, they were embodied into material culture thanks to the very strong relationship between humans and natural landscapes. Therefore, a new identity becomes apparent, channeled through the sensory and emotional domain, the landscape man. If the proposed approach captures even a little of the Minoan past reality, then there would be no need to assign an iconography of cult to the deity with upraised arms, since her divine character should be taken for granted on the basis of the above stated reasons. The assimilation between Minoans and peak sanctuary surroundings may be amenable to an unconscious process beyond nature-man interference we are challenged to explore further. The experience of the landscape is a cult in a class of its own, a trend even today present in actual fact, a honest response to the complexity of modern life. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. Do you have any questions?
Any comments?
Please.
Can you speak loudly because?
The idea of the Pantsabas idols being representations of the moon. Did you say that's a published idea, or is that your own as well?
The mountain emoji with the moon. No, Swedish researchers, Henriksson and Bloomberry. No, it's not my idea. As I said, it was perfect. Henriksson and Bloomberry are the two researchers that have the observation. But actually, this observation, to my mind, hasn't got the importance that it deserves.
Yeah.
I have some difficulties in trying to understand why figures that are so highly symmetrical can reconfigure something we encounter in the natural world, because we have no symmetry actually in the landscape like these figures display. So I'm wondering how we could actually put those two things together. I mean, I understand the static quality, as in the mountainous landscape being very static, but it's not symmetric.
Yes, that happens, but I tried to present in this limited time and space. I have a whole way of thinking. As if you notice, I think that the idea of confidence in basal arts phenomenology is delivered by this position. Maybe I didn't convince you.
Not entirely, but I'm looking forward to the paper. Maybe I'll understand it better afterwards. But the approach is really interesting.
We have to investigate more, looking through looking through many kinds of material culture, seal stealings, the way they calculate space, time, and all of them have a connection. Actually, I can't explain it more now. Excuse me. Can I have some water? Actually, this suggestion looks it's a little bit risky, but it's another way. It's another reading. It's another reading for the material culture, based on the very strong relationship that people had with nature, having as a result a mental creation that is evident in material culture.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, please.
I wanted to ask the figurine that you showed with the Sanctuaries that you mentioned. It could also be a person in ecstasy, because they say that the plant that is on its head, it resembles the capsule of the opera book.
Yes, of course. These readings are acceptable. I don't believe that they are in contrast with the suggestion I tried to present.
Anybody else? question.
Okay.
About the form of the landscape, for example, karfi. Karfi means nail in Greek. I'm wondering if such a peak 3,000 years ago had the same form, because we also have to think that the Crete is an island which is moving. It has many earthquakes. The erosion might also play a significant role, and also the vegetation. Sometimes I think that, okay, today we see a peak or a mountain with a certain form. If Crete was greener 3,000 years ago, would it have looked like the same? Like
Of course
today?
not. That's why we say they seem to have born in similar landscapes. Of course, it was not the same environment. But the magic of the landscape is the same.
Yes. Somebody can see a
And
face
experience.
on the mountain, that's
Mm.
wonderful. So
Okay, thank you.
I think we're done for this session.